What's up, everybody? How's it going? We are here and ready to start rocking with the next installment of our Mech.Game Play to Earn AMA series. Again, as we go, each one of these series will build on the last and talk more and more about different aspects of the play to earn environment inside of Mech.Game. We're also trying to bite-size chunk these out so they're not quite so long and invasive to try to listen to. And this one in particular is going to be all about the scholars and specifically how scholars will earn in the game without being a drain on the economy and how the leaderboard fits into that. Bill has been working on this for a while. We've been analyzing what the biggest issues in the play to earn space have been through all the other popular games that have been out there, what they did right, what they did wrong. What people like, what people don't like. And as it comes down, the whole scholarship model, which Axie Infinity kind of popularized, where the scholar is in effect renting a mech or renting an NFT from an owner in exchange for a share of the profits. And that allows for a really cool dynamic where someone who's not even a gamer or whatever can kind of create a mini business renting out NFTs to players in second and third world countries who are willing to play the game in exchange for a share of income of the prize money in order to make money. Now, it's an awesome model. It's really cool. And at the height of Axie, when it was at the biggest it was, there were over 2 million Filipinos every single day logging in and playing Axie and extracting a part to full-time income from the game, which is mind-blowing if you think about the ability to impact economies where, especially like in the Philippines, people were making more money playing a video game for a few hours a day than they could make at their job. Love the concept, love the ability to not only grow gaming, but also help impoverished and developing countries and people in those countries have more opportunities. However, as awesome as that sounds, the scholars are also the biggest problem in play to earn games when you have a scholar economy. And it's not that they're bad people or anything. It's just the way the model works. The scholars are renting the mechs from the owners with the intention of playing the game, extracting money from the game or extracting tokens from the game, converting those tokens into currency and using that currency to pay for their life, right? Which is okay. That's the concept. The problem is that means that scholars are also 100% the biggest drain on the economy and the biggest impact on downward sell pressure and devaluing the token, because they're going to earn and they're going to sell because that's what they're here, why they're playing. Okay. Now, knowing that, that's caused a lot of problems. And the idea here is, how do we reward scholars in a play to earn model where they actually are not a drain on the economy, but can also circle back in and help the economy work? Because when we say economy, guys, we're literally talking about an economy just like you would in a government or a small country. Even though it's a game, economies work by give and take. Money has to come in and money has to go out, and it has to go in a revolving system. Play to earn games don't really work that way. It's just paying out Ponzi-nomics, and there's no recirculation of the flow. If somebody's just constantly extracting, they're not a part of the economy. They're not helping the economy. They're just draining the economy. So Bill has been working very hard on this, and he's noticed these problems in other games. He's like, how can we fix this? How can we keep the scholar model alive? Because we love it, and we know our players and the scholars, of course, love it. And the people who have bought mechs have the intention of renting out a fleet of mechs to people and turning that into a revenue stream for them. But at the same time, we can't have those same scholars becoming a drain on the economy, because then it ultimately hurts the people who own the mechs and it causes the whole game and everything to struggle. So Bill has figured out some really, really cool ways around that, and also a way that actually has the scholars, for the first time ever, actually contributing back into the actual economy in a way that has never been done before. So it's not costing them anything, and they're still extracting money, but in a different way, so that they're actually helping the economy by selling items that then turn into cash flow for them. And it actually helps the managers, it helps the owners, and it creates this nice big wheel. So enough vagaries and me talking about the generalities of what's going on. I want to go ahead and dive into this, and I'm going to let Bill take it away, and I'll be in the background kind of adding my 2 cents as we go. So Bill, you there?
Yeah, man. No, that was perfect, dude. Couldn't have said any of that better myself. That's a nice sort of recap, and it really is going to work straight into my first sort of slide here as well. All right, I will. If you guys can see that,
We can.
I will probably get going. So, I guess what Tanner was saying there, and this is basically what we've seen in nearly every other play to earn, where if we take Axie for the example, because it's probably the biggest and the one that people know the best. So what happened in those economies is that Scholar would earn an X percentage of the split. All right. So if you're the manager, if anyone's new to the whole scholarship program, a manager would give a percentage of whatever the scholar earned for that NFT in a day, and that would be their set amount. And actually, you had to do that manually. Then you started seeing things like Peg Axie, where it was sort of all automated for it. The problem with these models is the scholars were earning from the same, essentially the same ecosystem, and they were selling into the same ecosystem. So if you think about it, that the scholars were kind of eating at the same table as the managers, and then competing for the price, right, and the same tokens. I want to try and separate that completely, because what you see here and what's happened in the past is that a scholar will earn, let's say 10%. All right, we'll get this as a draw. So let's say we start off, and this is the whole. If we use this one at the top, this is the whole pie. So this is what an NFT earns in a day. A scholar will start off earning like 10%, a split. All right, the scholar's going to sell that utility token. Huge sell pressure once we get to a point where there's no new demand. So this is the whole Ponzinomics, right? So this only works while there's new people coming into the ecosystem, because they need this token to then make more of these assets that just produce the same token. So it starts off at a small, 10%. And then after a while, when the token price drops, the scholar was used to getting X amount in US dollars a day. And that's all they really look at. And that's fine. As Tanner said, this is what scholars are doing in the game. They do extract. We just need to figure out how to make that work in a model, right? So the scholar's going to sell that. They were used to getting like, say, $5 every week for selling this token. Token prices drop 50%. Scholars are like, well, I still want to get that $5 a week. So now I need twice as much of the token to be able to get that $5. And now the scholar asks for more, and suddenly they have this much control of the supply. Now, this supply here represents the total amount minted as well. So the more that the scholar gets of this, and as this loop continues, and the scholar gets this, and
okay, you're good.
All right, sorry guys. So I think we're up to the part here, just before it dropped out, is that the scholar keeps getting more and more percentage of this pie. Now, this is the total amount minted. So as the scholars control more and more, this becomes a sell pressure, right? So at the start, there was a guaranteed, without any manager sell pressure, there was a guaranteed of this much sell pressure from each time the token gets minted. Managers might have sold this section, and this section here was being used as a utility token. So all this other half was getting used for utility, breeding, and then that's how managers would normally be making money in these old 2-token models, because it was profitable to breed. So if we look at breeding and why that was profitable, when you bred, you would sell it at a slight premium for new people coming into the ecosystem. So they had to pay that extra premium to be able to start earning and renting out and then breeding for themselves. So as the scholars percentage gets more and more, there's less that can be used for actual in-game things. So this is where the utility token should have been used, and it gets less and less the more the scholar eats up. So if we get rid of this, so eventually we get to a point where the scholar's taking about 80% of the mint, and 80% of that mint is getting just dumped directly on the market, which is fine, because that's what scholars are here to do, right? They're here to make US dollars. They don't really care. Some of them will hold the token. Some of them will become managers themselves. But a lot of the time that we've seen from projects, that all the scholar really wants at the end of the day is a US dollar value. So, and this obviously crashed the price of a lot of these projects, because the price of all the NFTs were directly tied to the utility token. So when you bred in Axie, like 80% of it was SLP, and that's what you're earning here. So that every time that this gets a bigger chunk and the price of SLP goes down, then obviously the NFTs who are made up of SLP, when they get bred, that goes down as well, and that just sort of starts to collapse in the crash of the token, then the NFT marketplace as well, and people start getting out as soon as they can. So what I'm trying to do here with Mech and trying something different is the majority of earning that I want to see here from Scholars is going to be coming from a leaderboard. Now, this leaderboard is going to be paid out in US dollars, so there's going to be no sell pressure on the token. But the major part of it is going to be NFTs that are given away as prizes for the leaderboard. So if we go back, I reckon we have this old breeding one from the last AMA. There's going to be a blueprint needed to breed a new mech or forge a new mech. And there's going to be a $25 USD ticket on that as well. So it's going to cost you $25 in US dollars at this point at the start to be able to breed the mech along with the blueprint. Now, the $25 here, $12.50 of every breed is going to go into the pool to pay for this Scholars leaderboard. I've got another calculator I'll bring up in a sec, but if you just remember that part. The other part here is that the Scholars are going to get NFTs and specifically blueprints, which are going to be needed. So they're going to be in demand by the managers or the player owners that own mechs that want to breed. They're going to need those blueprints, and there's only going to be a certain amount of those dripped out every week, and we control how much that is. So Scholars are going to earn a capped % of credits. So if we saw back in this one here at the start, there was around about 10% or so. We're going to cap this, so you won't be able to give a scholar more than the hard cap. At this point, we're looking at around about 10%. Nothing's completely set in stone on it though. So we're going to stop this from happening where the scholar keeps getting more and more and the sell pressure on this token. But also with them getting a percentage here for credits. Credits can't be swapped directly. They don't have a liquidity pool. So you're not going to be able to swap the credits. They're only going to be then converted across to mech, depending on the circulating supply. And that goes back to the first AMA that we had with how that conversion rate works every week. So a scholar is going to earn a little bit of credit points, but mostly they're going to be earning things from the leaderboard. So if let's say they top the leaderboard, they're going to get some NFTs. They're going to get, for the first 3 months, it's going to be some Genesis mechs and other things for the top 20. And as the game sort of builds out and there's more NFTs, we'll be able to stack this leaderboard out more. Now, Scholars are going to sell these NFTs on the marketplace to people. I know I've already put in here, we've seen this before. Scholars are going to undercut to try and get the US dollars because that's what they want, which is fine because it presents opportunities for managers that are waiting around the marketplace to be able to scoop up some pretty good bargains. Scholars will undercut each other. We've seen it in Peg actually with the stat boxes. It will just undercut pretty quickly. But when we drip out the blueprints, let's say we had 100, we're going to have 75 blueprints. We'll go to here, and then we're going to sell that as a team through the marketplace for a set USD price. So there's going to be a kind of a floor set by us, and then the Scholars will undercut, or anybody else that is here will most likely undercut those blueprints if they don't want to use them until they're all gone, and then the blueprints will have that sort of base price to try and sort of help the floor so it doesn't go too much under what we want to be able to sell them for. And we can control the supply of blueprints. So we'll have a look in the next part when we go through to the calculator, but we control how many blueprints get distributed every week. We control the percentage of how much goes to Scholars. So we have that lever to pull, right? If the blueprints are getting, just for an example, if the blueprints are getting stacked in the marketplace and everyone's undercutting and no one's buying them, we can just pull that drip back and be like, okay, cool, there's going to be less blueprints dripped over the next few weeks until that supply sort of comes back to a level where there isn't, where it's kind of matching that demand for it. So Scholars are only going to be receiving USD for most of their transactions. So when they get the leaderboard, we'll have a look at the calculator in a sec. But the leaderboard, the $12.50 from each breed will go towards funding this leaderboard. So essentially managers are paying for the leaderboard in USD up front, but also giving their mechs that they're breeding a significant bump in their floor price because it does cost a USD component, which we haven't seen before in any other project. When the scholar receives that USD, that's it. They can just take that out. They don't have to sell any mech token. They don't even touch mech as a token at this point, except for if they swap a little bit of this 10% across. But it's not going to have a huge impact. And at some point in the future, we're going to be using the credit points that they've got here and getting scholars in the habit of spending these credit points to try and get higher points on the leaderboard. So the hope is that there's the leaderboard will be top heavy. So there's demand to spend on things like shield generators and XP and gems to continue. So if you're a scholar and you've got a couple of credits, you could swap them for a couple of mech, or you could be using these credits to have things like continue on gems to continue and shield generators, XP bonuses, things like that. As we build the game out more, using credits, which is a utility token, to actually create utility for it. So there's going to be a lot of things that the scholars themselves can spend on as well, to give them a better chance of getting higher up on the leaderboard. We see this heaps in 9 Chronicles. If anyone has played that game, where they've got their PvP, and it goes on a there's like diminishing returns for each time that you continue and buy another ticket for like a PvP match. So once you've used all your tickets in 9 Chronicles for your PvP, you can then buy another ticket to battle someone else to try and get higher on the leaderboard. But each time you buy a new ticket, it costs more and more and more. So it might cost like 1 NCG and then 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So each time you do it, there is that diminishing return on it. But one of the big hopes is to try and get scholars to be able to spend a percentage of this small drip of credits. We look at this, so this small part of credits, making it enticing for them to spend it in game rather than trying to convert that to mech, because it's just going to make the conversion rate a little bit better overall. So the only interaction with mech is that small part. And then scholars won't participate in the same prize pool as managers. So if we remember that the managers, we put it here somewhere, earning for players, this is probably more earning for managers. Here we're going to burn credits. We can to sell NFTs. This is kind of the manager earning tree, and then we can cash out some of these credit points for mech. But the more people that cash out the credit points, the worse the ratio is going to be, because we've only got a certain amount of mech that we're dripping out. Tan, have you got anything on that one? I don't have the chat open either. I need to probably open this one here.
No, so far so good. And guys, I want to remind you from a lot of you guys are managers that are watching this, and you're talking about those different elements of like, oh, you're going to put in USDT, you're going to have to buy a blueprint. In any game, when you've been breeding, there's always a cost, whether you're buying the token or whatever. We've just split it up into different areas, so it's not all coming from the same cost or from the same token to try to. So we know we need USDT in the system. Managers previously would take their USDT or whatever fiat currency and buy the game token, and then so if it cost them $100 in game tokens, they had to spend $100 of fiat to get those $100 in game tokens. We've simply broken it up over different items that allows us better economic control over inflation and deflation, but the cost ratio to the manager stays the same for breeding. So I know people were like, oh, but it's going to cost me money this time. Well, it's always cost you money. You just didn't, you thought of it as tokens. Yeah.
So when you made like a bunch of SLP, you still had to buy the AXS point. All right. So no one was ever if you're an Axie. So if you were breeding an Axie, you had to take some of your SLP that you earned, sell it for USDT, or just swap it on the bridge on Ronin to get more AXS. And essentially the AXS is kind of, we've got that here as mech, but we've also added in the USDT and blueprints. But the blueprint part that we've added in is not so much more for an extra cost, but it's a way that it fixes a couple of problems, right? So we can give out, probably a good time I'll bring this one up. We can give out, let's say we had 5,000 mechs at the start. We got a blueprint drip of 20%. That means that there's going to be 187 blueprints being given out for the top 187 spots on the leaderboard. For that week, we'll get a blueprint. So whether that's scholars, whether that's player owners. But when it's scholars, we've now given the scholars something that they can sell and they can make some money from. Not everyone's going to win a prize here, which is going to be different than other projects where everybody just basically won, and that only lasts for a little while until the cracks start showing and things collapse. All right, so it's going to be pretty top heavy. There's going to be some really good prizes, and I'm hoping that the demand for these top prizes would be enough for scholars to want to play, because that's essentially what a manager wants. He just wants a scholar to be able to play for the day. The other thing with this as well, it's not going to be the 4-hour slog of Axie. If anyone was a manager for Axie, or even Peg Axie, I guess, like how long it took the scholars to play and to get through a full game loop for the day. I remember some of my Axie scholars were just like, man, I can't do it. It's like 3 hours of like death for me, and it's just battering up against the same MMR players and just not getting any further. And it was just a real grind. As Tanner said, like this is supposed to be like a toilet game, right? So this is going to be in and out like fairly quick. So I don't want scholars sitting there grinding out for like 3 hours a day on their mobile to try and earn like 56 cents, right? Or $4, or even for a top 3 place, where they'll be getting like, a Genesis mech, which is worth, around about $600 or so. I don't want huge amounts of time to be have to be spent by scholars. This should also help with, if they're not doing so well, and they're, and they're in the bottom couple of tiers, and they might play for a while and realize that this game's not for them. But that's also going to help with, it's not hours and hours of time. If they're jumping on for a little bit, the game's going to be fairly enjoyable as well, especially when we go through to other modes. It'll hopefully alleviate that sort of disdain from having to jump on and making this feel like a grind or a job. It's supposed to be a game where there's chances of winning some prizes. So this fixes the one problem that I have with, if we go back to, sorry guys, I've got a bit of a cough going on today. This one here. That's the other one. So this is the main problem, where we see scholars eventually just getting the lion's share of rewards, and then all of that just becoming more and more self-pressure. That's not going to happen with this, which is great. And the other good thing for this, right, is that when we're giving out players or scholars, when we're giving them these NFTs, they're going to sell them. Manager's going to get a good deal on some of these. It will essentially just drop the floor price a little bit, but there's not a huge amount that they're giving out. That we're giving out. There's going to be 20 or so different places, and hopefully the marketplace has a lot more volume than sort of 20 NFTs, or we're in some trouble anyway. But the good thing about this for us as a company as well is that we make that percentage from the marketplace fees as well. So we can give these things out. We're making money because they're drumming up sales in the marketplace. Scholars are getting their USD for cheap, and anyone with a keen eye and quick fingers should be able to pick up some deals, because scholars will undercut each other because all they want is USD. Imagine playing for like 15, 20 minutes a day for a week, end up with a Genesis mech for like $600. That's a lot more than a scholar would normally be making in most other play to earn games, except for if they got in at the top of some of these Ponzinomics, where it's they were making some pretty crazy money. So just making this really, really attractive for scholars, but only paying out a small amount. So a lot of scholars won't be making these kind of returns, but they have the chance for it. I mean, watching and looking at a bunch of different projects where there's some pretty reasonable high prices, and I've seen how much demand that they've had and how many players that they've had playing for them. So a walk-in runner is probably one of the good examples. There was thousands of scholars that were playing that, and they could play for themselves. I think their top price was like $1,000 USD for the week, but they definitely got enough volume through that through their app. I probably can go over this a little bit on the calculator. So like, as I guess the things that we're estimating here is how many mechs per player. So if we put this back down to like, if we're only having one mech per player, so if everyone played their own mechs and everyone only owned one, I guess, this really drops this USD amount, because this USD amount is being funded from the breeds. So we're getting this breed from how much we're dripping out in the blueprints. We can up this blueprint drip, and it ups everything else here. If there's too many blueprints in the market and they're not selling, we can just drop this down. So if we don't have the demand for people breeding, we can slow the breeding down. which then makes these more valuable because people won't know when we're putting this back up. And if they want to keep expanding, there's only going to be a certain amount of blueprint drip. So this is something that we can change weekly too. We're making sure we build in all these things where it's oops. Look at this. We're building in all these things. Just break my calculator. Building in all these things that we can change this, week to week, so we can keep an eye on what the economy is doing. We can keep an eye on sales, see how many blueprints are sitting in the market, because that's pretty much where most of the scholars are going to be getting their money is those first. It's about 11%. I think we went to 5%. About 3 per player. So it's about the top 11% of the leaderboard are going to get blueprints. And that's if everyone's playing around about 3 mechs each. This is the unique amount of qualifiers in the leaderboard. So I guess
cut out on me for a second. Did you explain the fact that I see you have it here, but scholars can actually play multiple mechs and be on the leaderboard in multiple locations?
No, so we're going to have when we talk with Java, so we're going to have so if they're on the leaderboard, their best one will, right?
Correct.
If we can still make that, yeah.
Yep.
So if you're playing 3 mechs, then only one of those are going to be counted on the leaderboard spot.
But you'll still get your mech token allocation for all 3.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So you still get your credit points for all 3. So if you're playing 3, they'll get 10% for each of those at max, from the regular sort of manager split. But yeah, for the leaderboard. So the more mechs everyone plays, the less unique qualifiers. So this is really however many unique qualifiers we get. We might have some people that play 10 mechs themselves. That will just sit there and just, if it doesn't take a huge amount of time, they might just sit there and play 10 to try and get one of them to hit one of these spots on the leaderboard. So yeah, that basically does that works out the USD portion from the breeds, right? And as the population, so if we I'll do a couple of questions here. So blueprint drip. So the blueprint drip is how many blueprints that we're going to allocate each week. So we control how fast or slow the game can expand for its player base. So if you're going to need, where are we? This one, I think. So to breed, you're going to need a blueprint, and we control how much blueprints get dripped out each week. So we're starting at 20% here. So we're starting with a mech population we think that's going to be around about 5,000 active mechs. We'll be able to tell sort of how many are active and sort of sitting around. And we want to be able to compound the population each week by 20%. So our blueprint drip is going to be 20%. So each week at 20%, we're going to have 250 blueprints. So this week, you're only going to be able to breed 250 mechs. This went back to the last AMA where we saw, I reckon I still got the slides here. We've got the daily average through blueprints, right? We've seen what this was with Axie and where the hyperinflation really kicks in because there's no control over how quickly a population of the NFTs, how they've never been able to do it where they've had restrictions on there, but the restrictions have been like a 3-day breed cooldown. So if you had a 3-day cooldown in your breeds, day 1, you've got 10,000 assets, and you could then breed, again, and then after your first cooldown, you've got 15,000 assets. After your next cooldown, you've got 22,000. After your third cooldown, you've got 33. You're 5x you can make new assets here. So after 3 cooldown periods, you basically 5x if everyone breeds. Where we've got this set up as we've got 20%. If we start with 10,000 at week 2, we're at 12,000. At week 3, we're at 14,500. Week 4, we're at 17. So we've only 2x'd after a month and a half. So the blueprint drip is just a way that we can control this hyperinflation of assets, because the demand is only good enough until people are not willing to buy the new assets. So we want to try and match the demand from the marketplace, so the floor price, with how much we're letting people produce. And that's one thing we're really going to keep an eye on. Because if people just are left to their own, they'll breed every cooldown to try and make as much money as they can. And then once there's too many assets and no one to play them, that's when the cracks start to show. And that's, we saw it with even with Peg actually. They hit like 1 million in a couple of months once the hype kicked in, and there wasn't 1 million people to play. There wasn't 1 million people willing to play at that point. So there's a heap of assets sitting there with nothing to do. Everyone just starts undercutting those assets. Hope that was good for the blueprint drip stuff. Any other questions so far? Probably haven't got a huge more amount of time. I just wanted to have a look at sort of just the way that scholars have traditionally sort of earned in play to earn, where there's been the scholarship program, and then sort of what we've learned from that, what we want to do differently, and just some sort of examples, right? So as the mech population goes out, so after we do get that double, after like 5 or so weeks, there'll be starting to be 500 blueprint drips. We can always change this as well just by doing this. If there's heaps of demand, it can also go the other way, right? So if there's heaps of demand in the marketplace, and mech, the floor price of mechs is going crazy because everyone wants to buy a mech, but no one can get one. Then we can up this, right? This will up it, and there'll be more drips. Makes the prize pool. More people get more blueprints, and we can obviously change that as the population grows. So it stays around about the same at 20. We're going to start seeing some decent amounts getting paid out, but we also have to have the demand to match 500 breeds. So if people aren't breeding 500, I don't want to be dripping out 500 new blueprints each week. We need to make sure that matches the demand of what we're supplying.
And if you haven't, hopefully you guys are picking up on all of this stuff, but one of when I was talking at the beginning about how the scholars now contribute back to the economy, the scholars are going to be the source, or going to be the manager's source of about 80+% of the blueprints that they need for breeding. And so they'll be selling those in the marketplace and buying them. So, and then they're making their money, their USDT, from selling the blueprints predominantly, and then also a little bit from their earnings from the profit split. But not only that, we're going to be giving away other cool things that are NFT based that managers and players and new people are going to be needing. So they're going to be fueling a lot of those things into the marketplace, since they are not going to keep them. Or it also allows some scholars who do well or get lucky to transition from potentially being a scholar and move into being a manager of themselves or a player owner, where, hey, I earned my own mech, cool. And then eventually I got my own stronghold, and little by little, they can kind of work their way into a new opportunity, which also has not really been a thing for the most case in other games. It happened a little bit, but it'll happen significantly more in our game, which also is another appeal for scholars, which helps managers attract more scholars, because now they've got more upside. They're not just being, quote unquote, taken advantage of as a scholar. They've got opportunity to grow and earn it. And also those of them that are talented, that put the time in the game, that actually try, have an opportunity to earn, up to $600 some odd or more in a week, which is just mind boggling for a scholar.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do is push that that Chris Moneymaker effect, where like after the first couple of weeks, there's going to be 3 scholars that are going to be talking to their friends and them and other discords and being like, hey, I want a Genesis mech, sold it for like undercut the market, sort of for like $400-$500, or I got a drone for coming 5th and I sold that, and you should try and get a scholarship in Mech.Game. I want scholars to be a part of it, because that's what was sold at the start of this, that it was going to be a scholarship program, but also at the same time don't want it to run away to the same point where we've seen other games with scholarship models, because no game so far with a scholarship model has lasted at all. Like they didn't have any of these levers built in, and they've just sort of basically copied the same thing. It was the same 2-token model. We've changed that up here, and just trying to make the scholars make sure that they're sort of where they're earning from is a completely different prize pool than what managers. So their managers are competing against managers for for profits, and scholars are just a byproduct, where they're not having to managers aren't going to have to compete against scholars and other managers. Yeah.
So guys, that again is concise and quick as we could do it. Hopefully that was very helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, we have a few minutes. We can take a couple questions. Otherwise, we can continue this chat in the Play to Earn Discord channel inside of the Mech group. But overall, what do you guys think? There's a few of you on here who I know have been paying attention and really waiting to hear about this. So excited to hear what you guys think. If you're a scholar, what do you think? If you're a manager, what do you think? I like it. You like it? Okay, cool. Very nice. Good. Okay. All right, Bill, is there any other last minute thoughts while we're waiting that you might want to throw out here? Cameron says, I'm a manager and I'm excited.
Nice. Oh, I can start seeing them come through now. All right, sweet.
Yeah. John says, all sounds great. Good deal.
Yeah, sweet. It's definitely something different that no one's tried yet, but we're just trying to see where other things have failed, see what other things have done well, and then just try and everyone's still trying to figure this whole scholarship thing out. No one's even got close yet. So by learning from other people's mistakes and taking some good pointers from people that have done well, I think is the way that we get through this, and just having a constant just a constant eye on it, right? So when I've said I want to be seeing, I'm going to be sitting there monitoring the marketplace to see how many blueprints are up for sale, how many are getting sold, how many aren't getting sold. When we get to the next week, have we used 80% of these blueprints? If not, we're going to start adjusting drips. It's going to be the more consistent tinkering with the levers that we've built in for the economy, rather than just letting it just go on its own and being like, hey, the price is the price. Like, you guys deal with it. I really want to be sitting here pulling all these levers as much as possible. And
I think that's a really big point, Bill, as well, is that's something that other games didn't do, or only tried to, they never had the levers to begin with. And then they would always try to retroactively add them in, usually way after the fact.
Yeah, and the horse had bolted at that point in most.
Correct.
There was
it was too far. Yeah, it's too, once you're past, momentum's built, it's hard to recover. But the other thing, guys, I want to be clear here, because as excited as Bill and I are, and I mean, Bill's a rock star at this stuff. Like, not only does he know how to do it, he's also the manager himself. So he's going to be taking advantage of this from his own side. And if it's not working, he's going to see it firsthand, not just secondhand. The other piece of that, though, guys, is I don't want you to think that we have all the answers. We are very much going to be adjusting this and tweaking this. Like Bill said, nobody's got this right yet. What we're doing right now is what we think is the absolute best foot forward that we could do. But we fully expect to be monitoring, tweaking, adjusting, and potentially even changing as it rolls out. But the idea is we're building all the levers that you could possibly think of, even some that we don't think we're going to use. We're still building those things in there into a way that we can easily modify them later, so that we're not stuck if and when it needs to happen. So I think that's one of the biggest differentiators of what Mech.Game is doing, is we are making sure we have the ability to save the game from itself, basically, if something gets out of control or doesn't run the way we're anticipating.
Yeah, and I'm going to say when something goes the wrong way.
That's true. When something goes the wrong way.
When something goes wrong, at least we have, and like, I think that's it, right? I think that's what a lot of people in other projects just sort of missed, and what they wanted. It was just like, a lot of projects I was in, I didn't care if the team got it right. I just wanted to see them trying or caring, rather than just sort of saying, hey, let the market decide what it is. Hey, this is crypto. This is what it is. It's like, this is not just crypto. You can't just get away with saying, hey, there's heaps of volatility.
Yeah.
You should be able to put these things in. It's much more, there's so many more variables going on within a play to earn game and its token than what you would see in another token, right? It's other tokens are pure speculation. No one really uses tokens. If you look at the transactions on Poly, or transactions in total on chain, most of them were from gaming, like over the last year. Like the majority of transactions on chain have been from gaming. So we're getting the people to actually use and spend the tokens rather than buying them in speculation on Binance and then selling it for later. Like a lot of these are just complete speculation, just pure TA, and people just trading them for profit. In Play-Doh and gaming, or in gaming in general, and whole metaverse stuff, tokens actually get used. When most of the time I don't. Like if I bought a bunch of like ADA, I don't think I've ever used ADA. The only thing I've ever used is Matic, because I have to use it for gas. That's pretty much it. I don't think I've used a token inside of an ecosystem, outside of gaming. So
awesome.
cool.
All right, guys. Well, we got to wrap this up. Bill's got things he's got to get to as well. And we also kept this nice and short for you guys, so it's consumable. I'll get the recording rendered, get it up on our YouTube channel and in the group, and let's continue the conversation there and keep making this better as we go. All right?
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
For everything. We'll
Thanks,
try and
everybody.
keep these bite size as well. All right.
See you guys. Bye-bye.